Welcome to Translation Confidential. This is Peter Argondizzo and Patrick Daly, and we have a special episode lined up for you today. This is our 30th anniversary. So this is the week of our founding 30 years ago. It's amazing to think that 30 years have passed. But for this episode, we have brought together some of the folks that were key in the founding and just the ongoing work that's done here at Argo, basically our two longest standing employees with us. So we've got Jackie Lucarelli, our co-founder and director of employee wellness, and Kimberly Miller, our chief operating officer, and of course our host, Patrick Daly, short timer at Argo Translation. Patrick, I've never called you a short timer. You were here a few years, I think, right?
Yeah,
just about
it's a
6.
good chunk.
Yeah, you know what that qualifies.
That's
not so short.
Yeah, that qualifies you not to be called a short timer.
I mean, when compared to me and Jackie, though, so.
Yeah.
Yes, correct. But anyway, we're here to celebrate. We're here to have a fun conversation about what's changed in the industry. We're probably going to laugh a little bit about some old stories, and it should be fun. Patrick, why don't you get us rolling?
Yeah, the first question I have is for Peter and Jackie. If you can put yourselves in the time machine and take us back to when you first had the idea to start Argo, can just walk us through how it all started and what really spurred the idea to start your own translation company.
Well, I guess I'll take a start at it. So I was working at a medical device manufacturer called Marquette Electronics in Milwaukee, and I was a buyer of translation in my role. I was a project manager there, and really just frustrated with our choices of what was out there in terms of buying translation, and being young and naive and just thinking, well, I could do this better. And, one of the things that I like to joke about is when I went home to tell my folks I was still living at home, my father had a great inspirational speech for me. He said, well, even if things don't work out, your mother will always feed you. So I thought, well, hey, let's build on that. Let's build on that positivity. But no, it was fun times. I mean, really, it was crazy. If you think of this, the mid 90s, if you think of where the tech stack was, I mean, it was really, really a different world. There was no Trados. There was no email. There was no internet. Gosh, Jackie, if you remember, I think the first thing we had was a BBS. And if anyone, it's a bulletin board, essentially. So it was like a place you would hit your dial-up modem with, and it was a place you would leave a file, almost like Dropbox. And then you'd have to communicate to the translator. It says, hey, your file is up there. And or you could connect direct by computer. But really, the whole thing is that the translation space was wide open, and it was, I would say, dominated at that time by a lot of hobbyists. And what I would call hobbyists, I mean a French professor at the local university who in the evenings would do French translation. It was not as much of a career as it is now. I mean, now it's big business, it's career, there's so many positions available, not just the positions you think of just in translation. So the inspiration was frustration. As a buyer, you couldn't rely on timelines. You couldn't rely on costs. Like budgets were like, well, whatever, let's see how it turns out. And that's just no way to run a business. So again, being naive, I thought we could improve on that. And I think we have over these last 30 years. And basically, Jackie joined just a few weeks after that, not that long after we started. And after some begging, she jumped on, and I'll let you jump into that, Jackie.
True. I did start. We had literally a handful of customers at the time when we got started, literally probably 5. But we didn't know what we didn't know as far as like tech was concerned and which way the business was going to go, because they were just kind of like single people translation agencies, or small, very small. So we still did a lot of stuff on hard copy. We still did a lot of discs. We hand delivered projects to customers. We edited on hard copy with a pen. We didn't know what we didn't know. We didn't know what was coming as far as tech was concerned. We didn't have a website, if I remember correctly.
No,
we had nothing of the sort. We had to dial in to the modem every time we wanted to look for a file or send a file, and then come out and
faxed purchase orders, if you remember that.
Yes, yeah. So it was very different. But things progressed, I think, technically very quickly. That was like the age of tech, I feel like, where everything in every industry just started booming as far as computers were concerned and software.
Outside of tech, I'm curious, were there any other kind of business challenges that tripped you guys up in the early days that you were able to overcome?
everything. I mean, everything was a challenge, right? I mean, because you didn't have much of a tech stack. I mean, like goofy challenges that we don't think of today, like, oh, what time does FedEx, what's the last drop time for FedEx? Or, oh, our courier got a flat tire on the way here to pick up a floppy disk. I mean, literally like crazy stuff like that.
Do we have enough paper to print all of these in all languages by 5 o'clock? Do we need to run to the store? Do we have enough ink? Because there's a printer on the table in the office doing the work.
And mind you, how about like there was a laser printer that printed 4 pages per minute. And that was like, hey, this is a really great printer. And I remember we had to figure out, well, how long is this going to take to print? Because we have to print 10 languages of this manual and get to FedEx by 7 p.m. And I remember we just barely made it.
Many times.
Like crazy.
And I remember standing at the printer waiting for it to print. Like if I stood there waiting to grab it, it would go faster. It was like all those things are like non-existent today. That's just, it was all those kind of things. And finding room on the floor to lay out all the documents, by language, by project, getting them all together, putting them in the FedEx packs, the envelopes and getting them out. And yeah, it was a lot of that kind of thing.
It was really logistics, Patrick. I mean, if you think about it, if we were doing a translation project in, say, 15 languages, okay, 30 people involved, translator and editor, people used to translate off of a hard copy. So, or we'd spend a lot of time at Kinko's at the time. Hey, we need to unbind this manual and get 30 copies of this. And then we'd have to go back and handwrite 30 FedEx envelopes. I mean, it's like ridiculous things like that. But every turn was a challenge. I mean, you have to think computing, Windows didn't exist when we opened. So when Windows came out, I mean, even just, there's, a new Adobe program or, PageMaker, FrameMaker, advent of FrameMaker. So it's just like the software costs were really high because everything was new and kept changing. And you had very different desktop computing than we have today. I mean, so many challenges really that we faced. And it was mainly
and the accounting too. Accounting software, boy, back to what? Peachtree?
Peachtree,
It was the first time. It was all so basic. And so, just not, didn't connect to any other software we had. And it was just, but we didn't know. We didn't know what we didn't know. So you used what was out there and you made it work. So.
Yeah, that's something I know, Peter, you've mentioned before is the problems in year 1 are different from year 5 or different from year 30. And I think once you figure out kind of that baseline, just like how are we going to do business, it frees you up to like actually focus on your passion and like the actual project management of translations. And like, then you can become that much more efficient and effective with all the work you're doing.
Absolutely. I mean, before the advent of translation management software, because remember, again, we were translating off of paper. So one of the things you used to have to do is sentence checks, because translators would accidentally miss a sentence. So you'd literally be combing through. You'd have one hard copy here and one hard copy here, and you're just flipping pages and going. Of course, and you're reading a language that you don't necessarily read as a project manager. I mean, we all have experience with that. And you're just, I think they missed a sentence here. And then, now, I'll just shoot off a quick email. No, you pick up the phone and go, hey, I think you missed a sentence here. And then sometimes the translator, I didn't keep a hard copy of it. Geez, Louise. Okay. So then you'd be reading a link. It just, again, the logistics of it were crazy compared to what we do today.
Cool. The next one, Kimberly, is for you. I know you've been at Argo for quite a while now, so curious if you have any standout moments that were kind of significant turning points for the business and how you helped lead the company through them.
Well, coming off of what Peter was saying, I mean, obviously the technology, because, all those stories from Peter and Jackie so I've been here for about almost 21 years. So they had a 10-year head start on me. So I missed out on a lot of that manual labor. So when I got there, it was TMS systems were, a thing, and we were using Trados, SDLX, but it was still very manual. The focus was still on how do I get this information to who needs to do it? How do I get it back quickly? It wasn't as much focus on the actual translation. It was so much of the logistics around it. But honestly, though, Peter, I think one of my favorite memories is those page checks, those huge FrameMaker page checks. they were fun. We did print them out. And I just remember 15 languages and being in the conference room. And it's like, we are reviewing some quad manuals today and we're laying them all out. And it's just looking through them. And now, all of that is a lot faster. It's, everyone's got multiple monitors. You can do so much now without, having to we barely use our printer.
Barely.
And if we get a fax, it's like, what is going on? Like, who is faxing? Who is faxing us? I remember the whiteboards. I love the whiteboards when we would write up our projects and then wipe it off when it got done. But back then, it was like 10 big projects at a time. We're doing hundreds now. And so, we get to digitally see them get wiped out on our digital dashboards now. I would just say every year there was more technology available, but the challenge was not everyone knew all the tech, right? Like so much was coming out so quickly. So there was a big ramp up on getting translators up to speed so that they felt comfortable, using the technology. I know there was hesitation way back in the day, with TMS, with TM, being nervous about it, thinking that, jobs would be lost. But essentially the goal has always been to be able to do more translation, right? The technology is supposed to help us do more. It's not supposed to, the goal has never been to take jobs away. And, we've been experiencing, now, yes, of course, now, with AI, that's a lot of the discussion, but we don't see it like that at all. It's a really positive thing. It's how we can translate so much more material in a quicker. So I just think it's just been a gradual, gradual increase in, adopting that technology. And we've never been scared of it. We've always been excited for it. We want to try out all the new tools. Peter's probably the first person to dig in and yes, I want to learn about that. And then we test it out and implement it and, away we go. But I would say the biggest thing was definitely not just translation management systems, but when they became online, in the cloud and the server, that was huge because now it's real time discussions and moving stuff with translators. Before it was, yes, there was a TMS, but you'd have to, export a package and email it and then wait and then check in. And online and on the server, early thousands, you could see everything so much faster.
I just wanted to add something to what Kimberly was saying because I feel like some of the same things coming around again. When translation management systems first started, we were being trained on Trados. Our trainer was here from DC on 9/11. So 9/11 happens. She's here from DC. We're trying to learn that, the new system to us, this whole, not even just a new system, a new way of doing things. Wow. So at that point, too, a lot of translators, now, with AI, everybody's getting scared. What's that say about my job? What's that say about my future, the industry for me? And the same thing was going on with the translation management systems back then. Some translators dropped off the grid. They're like, I'm not doing this. I'm not going to be a part of this. I'm older. I don't need this. I don't need to learn it like that. It'll never be as good as what I'm doing. So it's with new things. And I feel that same thing starting now. If you don't stay ahead of it and stay with it, you will fall out of it, basically. So that same thing happened then. Plus we had 9/11 going on, which the exact day. So everything changed. It changed the world. It was a world-changing event, and no one knew what was going to happen. No one knew where we were. And not only was the translation management system going to change their world, but everything else was changing too. So it was kind of a double whammy at that time of fear, what was coming.
It was scary.
So, yeah,
we've had some pivotal moments like that. And, the 2008 economic bust, 9/11. You saw POs just stop. 9/11 we had approvals that the previous day that then went on hold.
Everything.
Immediately.
Everything stopped.
Clients didn't know what was going to happen. And again, we talk about that today, that uncertainty is never business's friend. Whenever there's uncertainty, you get PO hesitancy. And, we're seeing that again right now. There are some headwinds, but one of the stories that I have that I don't know if we were smart or dumb or both, or I'm not sure which it was, but, when Trados came to be, people don't think about this, but Windows had just started. So now we're away from DOS computing. We're doing Windows computing. And what we have is Trados, first version of Trados, $2,400 for one license. So now imagine telling freelancers, hey, if you want to do work with us, you have to go buy this $2,400 software that you don't know anything about or how to use. And we were fortunate enough to meet Brian Briggs, who was running a software shop in Evanston, Illinois. And remember, we were in Milwaukee at the time, in Evanston, Illinois, and he was selling Trados, and they would have volume pricing. So if you agreed to buy more than 20 licenses, there was a break, more than 30, a break. So we were at $1,600. And what we told our translators is, if you work with us, we'll buy the license for you and you can work it off. In other words, you owe us $1,600, but you don't have to give us the money. You just work it off slowly in your POs. We'll just mark your POs down, which, by the way, we manually hand wrote back then. And I think that was a real pivotal moment for us, because it put us in more of a tech forward stance. And we literally had translators calling us, because again, calling by phone from all over the place saying, hey, we heard you're selling Trados for $1,600. We'd like to join your company. So we would talk to them, go, well, this sounds like a good translator, a good resume. So suddenly it became a recruiting tool for us as well. So I think that was, a pivotal moment. And I think it really kind of started us with this sort of tech forward ideology.
Yeah, that's a good point, Peter, of kind of turning an obstacle into an opportunity. Of that is a high cost of entry, especially 25-ish years ago, for that amount of money to just have the software to do it. But you kind of turn it on its head.
Yeah. You could buy a decent used car for that money in the 90s.
Yeah. And you turned it right around, and it turned into a very positive thing for you. Another thing that kind of stood out to me there was, I think as much as things have changed, I think there's also an element of things staying the same. You guys mentioned like page checking. Like, to me, that's now QA within the translation management system, or even reviewing after it's been laid out. That's still something project managers will do on projects, is take a look at it. Again, now it's on your monitors rather than a printed copy, but it's kind of the same thing. You just give it a quick visual check and say, hey, this looks way shorter, way longer, whatever the case may be. But that's still something that good project managers do to this day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what's next? What do you got for us, Patrick?
Yeah, the next one I want to dig into is the company culture and values. So obviously you've been around for 30 years, which is a good chunk of time for any business. So just wanted to chat through like what core values have guided you through the ups and downs. I know you mentioned, economic factors outside of your four walls obviously have a big impact on any business, but kind of what has kept Argo going through core values.
Gosh, who wants to start?
Well, I think starting from day one, when Peter and I started the company, I think the number one thing that we always stress as one of our values, of course, we didn't call them core values back then. We didn't have anything set up or written on a wall or anything of the sort. It was just what we believed to be the best practice for our business. Was we always felt just to be fair to the customer, be fair to the vendors, be fair to, we didn't have employees until we got one part-time, but just to always be fair and be transparent. Like, do what we say we're going to do, stick true to what we said, how we said it. And if things change, then be clear with either the translator, vendor, or customer what changed and why, and always be upfront. And I think that today that Argo still does that. And that's been from day one.
Kimberly, how about for you?
Yeah, definitely transparency. I think that's huge. And it also makes our work kind of, I don't want to say the word easy, but it makes decisions really easy. We weave those core values into just about, every meeting, every review, it's just so important. And whenever like a problem arises, the first thing we always look at is the core values. Okay, well, what does the core values say? And then it's like instantly we know the answer. So it just makes, all of that a lot easier.
Yeah, I would agree. I think one thing that has served us very well, all of them have been great, but one of the ones that I like is, clear and candid communication. And I think that has served us well with employees, with vendors, with customers, even with customers. Listen, I think the hardest lesson as a new business owner is to give people the information that they don't want to hear. I think all too often in business, we think that if a client comes and says, hey, I want to do it for this price and I want to do it in this time, and really that budget is crazy and that timeline is crazy, and we just say yes, those are short-term wins. They're not long-term wins. And that's why I think we're very proud to have, we've got quite a few clients that have been with us since the beginning. And I think that only happens when you earn their trust. And some of these clients, they've had multiple changes, and the folks that we work with, we've had people retire. We've had so many great customers that have really helped form who we are as a company and that we've learned from, and they've journeyed into other types of translation. And I think all of that comes only because of the transparency, the being fair, and of course, even that clear and candid, just conversations about deadlines and budgets and what's really possible, and not just telling people what they want to hear, but what they need to hear.
I think a testament to that too is how many clients that you have that have worked with you at multiple different organizations is definitely a testament of they're like, okay, maybe I switched jobs, but I'm taking my translation provider with me when I move over to the new job. I think we've had plenty of those over the years, and that's just a really good testament to how much trust and credibility that you've built with those contacts.
That is one of our quality metrics, Patrick, is tracking those referrals and repeat business, because that's exactly what Peter said. It's the most important thing, right? We're not there for just one job. The focus is a relationship, partnership to keep going, and that transparency that Jackie was talking about. I mean, it's not just something that we say, oh yeah, we actually document it, right? Our quotes are so transparent. They tell you everything that you're getting and how you're going to get it. And I also think it's led us to all of the ISO standards that we have. We haven't struggled with getting any of those standards done or documented. Obviously, coming from ops and production, I'm big on procedures, written procedures and processes. And, all of that, people kind of run up into some issues with some of the ISO standards because what they've got written isn't exactly what they do. And that's never how we've been, right? What's the point of saying you're going to do something and then doing something different? So yeah, I mean, we've got now 4 ISO registrations, and it's been such a smooth process because we've had, it's part of our core value to be transparent, which is all about what the standards say, right? You have to communicate all of this information with the customer. That's part of the, expected relationship. And that came natural and easy to us.
And what's funny about that is if you think about the parallels between when translation management systems started and now the advent of AI and, enhanced MT and, more, this sort of plate shifting, huge technology shift in our industry, transparency leads the way again, because again, we're seeing that there are competitors of ours that are not transparent, and they just say, yes, we're doing translation. And little do they know that the translation is being done with AI and perhaps having a review, perhaps not. Again, leaving those details out. And I think that, again, we're going to lead the way into this next shift in our industry with transparency, because yes, the AI has gotten better and it should be used, right? But we're going to be very forward thinking about that and letting our clients know exactly what we're doing, when we're doing it. And I think that'll be the key for us moving forward, as well as to continue to do the things that got us here, essentially.
Yeah, it's funny, Peter. I always bring up the analogy of, it's like saying you're going to buy transportation. It's like, okay, what does that mean? Is it a bike? Is it a car? Is it an airplane? If you just start at that top level saying I just want to buy translation, it's like, great. What does that actually mean? You need to dig down and figure out all of those details so you're not, selling a scooter and having the client expecting an airplane.
Well, it's the whole spirit of this podcast, right? We were inspired by the whole Anthony Bourdain Kitchen Confidential movement, and him kind of pulling the curtain back on what happens in commercial kitchens. It's the same thing here. Is we're hoping to demystify translation, and I think we've been pretty successful at that, and I hope we continue to be successful at that. I have every reason to believe that, we've got the right recipe for moving forward as well.
Awesome. Obviously, you guys have learned a lot of lessons over the last 3 decades. So just curious if there's one lesson that really sticks out from the past 30 years. I know we all have that one moment where we're we'll make one mistake and we're like, well, never doing that again. And it really sticks out in your mind for the rest of your career. So just curious if you had any big learnings that really kind of took you along on this journey?
I wouldn't say it's necessarily a specific lesson, but I think because of all of the technology change and there's so much focus on customers, but you cannot forget about your translators, right? Like if all the translators just disappeared, there would be no translation, right? They are the backbone of everything. And so, I think there's sometimes the tendency to just only focus on that, that customer and that new approval, but making sure that your translators are set up for success, that they have what they need, that they understand. The last couple of years, we started doing, vendor webinars where we would every month host a webinar for, any of our translators and talk about whatever's going on in the industry, new technology, whatever is happening. And I think that has helped them not be as nervous or scared, when we first adopted, some more MTPE workflows and then now some AI workflows. But for me, that's it, because I feel like they're just so important. And it honestly goes back all the way from what Peter and Jackie were saying about Trados and offering to, help them adopt this technology, because there was so much nervousness about it. Because honestly, especially when you get busy and you're growing, you need your translators. You need to constantly be adding to your pool of talent. I guess that's my focus. It's yes, of course, keeping that talent, up and running and confident is obviously going to lead to a really good end product for the customer. So if you just start from there, then I think everything gets better.
I would say following kind of what Kimberly's saying, but with employees, right? What we've learned over all these years is the generations change. The employees coming in are young. Post-COVID, we have a whole new breed of employees coming in. Their expectations are different. Their wants are different. Their needs are different. So it's something we have to pay attention to. We're of a different generation, and now we have Gen X, Gen Z, millennials, whatever, you name it. So I think that we have to pay attention to that. We have to pay attention to how they work, their expectations, and try and meet in the middle on all of those things.
I think for me, the biggest life lesson is or business lesson is just to move forward. Again, not anything specific, but if I look at all the times where we've faced adversity, whether it was the 2008 economic crisis, whether it was, quite honestly, whether it is where we are today. We have a fair amount of headwinds right now. If you think of AI, if you think of a tax on language access, if you think of economic policy that we can't control that potentially could impact international trade, those are things that we can't control. But what we can control is exactly what's building on what Kimberly and Jackie talked about, is how we treat our employees, how we treat our vendors, how we treat our customers, and really just remembering that ultimate mission, the reason why we all decided to work in this industry, which is to help people communicate, right? We help bridge the gap. What do we talk about so often in the podcast, Patrick, is about clear and concise communication, right? We always talk about how that's the cure to all. We're helping our clients to do that regardless of what language, their end customers, their employees. And that's what I really love, is that our clients and customers are not just customers, revenue generating. I mean, we do so much in employee communications, whether it's internal knowledge bases, telephonic interpretation to help with training, and, employee reviews. And we see it in our dashboards, and I always tell our folks to look behind the numbers, right? But when you look at a dashboard and say, wow, we did 3,000 minutes of telephonic interpretation today. Well, that's a big deal. There was 60, 70 conversations, 100 conversations that we helped facilitate. And, I think those are the big lessons, is that in the face of adversity, to just keep moving forward.
Awesome. I'm also going to answer my own question on this one, because I have a good one. It was very early on when I was at Argo. We had a sales trainer come in, and he mentioned that, in any as a service business, it can often feel like a parent-child relationship where the parent is the buyer and the vendor is the child, but really that the best business relationships are really a parent-parent relationship where you're on equal footing. And I think, like you guys have mentioned, through all those core values, that's how you get on that equal footing, is through that honest communication, through transparency, and earning that credibility. But I mean, I've been now at 2 different service companies after Argo, and I always think back to that of, yes, they are the buyer and yes, we are the supplier, but at the same time, like the most successful working relationships are based on mutual respect and trust. So kind of trying to establish that, we're both on that equal footing of a parent-parent relationship. That one has really stuck with me for a long time.
John Maxwell. That's John Maxwell. Yes.
Yep.
Shout out to John Maxwell.
Cool. I think the next one is just kind of a look ahead. I know Peter and I did our predictions at the beginning of this year, so we'll see how those land at the end of this year. But kind of taking a broader view of the next kind of 30 years for both Jackie and Kimberly, like what do you see changing in the next 10 years and then beyond, and kind of how are you setting yourself up for success to tackle those challenges that will come up?
I don't think it's going to be another huge shift. I think it's just going to continue to be that like gradual increase in, the tech stack and what's available. Obviously, AI is going to get better. Of course it will, but we're always going to need humans to do that review. So I think that there'll be a shift from, pure translations from scratch. I mean, we still see them today. There's still clients that prefer them today. Eventually that may decrease and might just be reserved for the types of files that, aren't digitized or something like that. But it's going to be a focus on, a lot of review. But the benefit to that is so much more getting done, like language access and access to material in your language is so important, regardless of what happens, in the government or anything like that. People still are speaking these languages. They're still writing these languages and they still need to understand and they deserve to understand. And so, yeah, that's just what's going to be. My hope is that, well, I don't even think it's a hope. I think it's going to happen. It's the amount of translation out there is just going to drastically increase because so much more is going to get access, is going to be able to be handled.
Jackie?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think the main thing that we have done and we need to do is just keep paying attention and keep moving forward with all the changes. There will be surprises along the way. I mean, we've been through 9/11, we've been through COVID, we've been through tech changes. They're going to keep coming. The world will keep changing, but we need to pay attention, stay on top of it. I think do what we do. Just keep moving forward.
Yeah, to build on that, I very much think exactly the same thing, is that, the only constant is going to be change. And for those of us in the industry, we have to think of, like, we've seen this, right? I think we have to think of the playbooks that we've used in the past, and we've seen this playbook. We've seen massive change. So we just have to continue to persist. We have to continue to stay on top of the change. I think, Patrick, you and I have talked about this in past episodes, that I think the translation service providers that are out there that think, well, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. AI doesn't exist in my mind. These threats don't exist in my mind. They're going to be left behind. There's no question. Those that didn't embrace translation memory, I would venture that there's very few of those left today. So for me, I think the stress is going to continue to be on reducing friction between the user of translation and the end client. So things like our SharePoint Connect, our SharePoint, CMS Connect SharePoint, CMS Connect Slack, those are going to be really, really good solutions that people are going to use because it knocks down the barriers to that access to translation. And they'll be able to do, we can do already customized workflows like we've done, and we'll continue to push those out on other platforms. My guess is if we were to look 5 years from now, we'll probably have 30 connectors. That's my guess. Mark, if Mark's listening, our CTO, he's probably having a bit of a panic attack on that one, but I think we'll probably see a huge increase in our level of connectors.
On top of that, true, that could be true, but also we don't know what we don't know what's coming.
Absolutely.
So Slack might be something so of the past, SharePoint might be of the past very quickly. And it's just, we have to be ready for those changes that suddenly, oh my gosh, here we are. What is this? Let's keep going. Let's see what it is. Let's see how it works for us. What can we do with it? How do we get ahead? So just because it's happened. Yeah.
Microsoft just shut down Skype, right? Like that was a huge thing that was like the first video conferencing tool. And now, I mean, they've probably taken all the good technology out of it and thrown it into Teams, but like Skype no longer exists. So you kind of have to figure out, okay, what's the next tool if you were using it?
Kimberly, what were you going to say?
Do you remember talking to translators on Skype back in the day? I completely have forgotten about that. And clients. I've Skyped with clients as well. Honestly, now I forgot what I was going to say.
Well, I think it leads us to a good spot because maybe it'll come up in the wrap up. I think we're at that point in the show where obviously we could do this for hours, but let's talk about maybe the one big takeaway or one last memory. And Patrick, I would like you to answer as well. What do you guys think? Why don't we start with Patrick? Patrick, you go first.
Yeah, I think it's been cool to see how you've been kind of on the cutting edge of things as they do come out. I know we've mentioned a lot that technology changes, greater economic factors change, but kind of like a real and simple example for that of me is even before COVID, when everyone went fully remote for full time, like all the project managers were already remote 2 days a week. So that we already had all the equipment at home. We were already set up for success so that, yes, like COVID was a huge change to a lot of people's work and business, but like it was disruptive, yes, but it wasn't as disruptive because we already had the tools in place and the people in place to kind of, not necessarily that you were planning like, hey, everyone has to go full remote forever. Like that wasn't necessarily the plan, but you had the luxury of already having that set up in place where it really wasn't necessarily disruptive to the team or their workflows. It's like, okay, instead of 2 days at home, now it's all 5, and everyone was already set up for success. So I think being on the cutting edge of both people, like I think that my generation wants to be at minimum hybrid. Like people probably don't want to go in every day, but kind of that was happening 10 years ago at Argo already. Like it wasn't really, we didn't really give it a second thought. So just kind of being ahead of the game and staying on top of the industry and people and all that kind of stuff really has set you up for success.
Thank you. Kimberly, you're next.
I think I was the first partially remote worker back in 2009 when I had my second child. So I got to experience that firsthand a couple days a week. So yes, Patrick, absolutely. I feel like that's why we were very successful during COVID with obviously keeping business going just fine. And actually it led to some huge wins, which is actually something that I was going to mention earlier, was our remote workforce, right? Like as soon as we were able to stop looking just necessarily in the Chicago area or the Milwaukee area, we can now get talent, worldwide. We've got teams in different countries. And I'm not talking just translators, I'm in production. So it's awesome. Just getting to work with so many people around the globe every day, and you just kick up a Teams call and I feel like we're more productive, right? Those of us that are local, we still get to come into the office, which is awesome because we love seeing each other. But it doesn't take away from the benefits of, that hybrid work or with the employees that are fully remote. So yeah.
Great. Jackie.
Speaking of working remote, I remember probably when my son was, I don't know, 2, 3, being up late at night working, doing accounting and things late at night while he was sleeping, 11, 12, 1 a.m. So yeah, I guess our remoteness started a long time ago. So it wasn't such a foreign concept when we got hit with COVID. And I just think that it makes it so much easier for us that we were prepared. Like Patrick said, we were prepared for this. So now we can have employees anywhere, which is great because we get so many different people, different ideas from around the world, which is not just for business, but it's just interesting to know these people and to have them on our team. And I think that's one thing that will definitely continue no matter what.
Absolutely. For me, my biggest takeaway whenever we have these conversations, it's hard not to get a little emotional. I think it was verklempt, right, from the Saturday Night Live skit. I get a little emotional because I think of all the people we've impacted, right? And I think of whether it's customers, employees, vendors. I mean, we have had some amazing people that we've worked with through the years, and many have retired or they've moved on to other companies, or we've even had retirees here from Argo. We've had people come and we've had people go and come back. It's just amazing to me if I think of all the interactions we've had in 30 years, and just I like to think I'm personally very, very fortunate to work with really wonderful employees and customers and vendors, and just work with really, really wonderful people. And I hope that continues. I think I'm very fortunate, to have had those people. And still, Patrick's still here doing the podcast with us. So he must not have hated it too terribly. So he's still hanging out with us. So that's my big takeaway. So for this episode of Translation Confidential. Before I break down in tears, we'll wrap this one up. Thanks for joining us.